guest speakers that will be joining us and sharing about the great work that they're doing as well. So if you look at our agenda this morning, we're going to start out with Dr. Ben Williams, who's going to be sharing some really great information around equity this morning. We also have Amy Shakot with us this morning, who will be sharing about a great program that's happening at Southwestern. And then we'll also be updating you this morning just about all of the work that's been happening in between our Business Advisory Council meetings with our work groups. So to start us off, I really want to thank Dr. Ben Williams for joining us this morning. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity. That's a consortium of state and workforce development agencies, community and technical colleges, secondary institutions, business and industry. And their mission is really to build educators' capacity to implement effective solutions and increase student access, educational equity, and ultimately workforce diversity. So we really appreciate Dr. Williams being with us this morning because he's very busy and he has some great information to share. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Williams.
Great. Good morning, everybody. You should see a different PowerPoint up in front of you. Yes? Thumbs up? All right.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, it's wonderful to be with you all this morning, and I see a number of familiar names and familiar faces and a number of folks who I have not yet had the pleasure to meet. So I'm actually located right here in Columbus and have been living in Columbus and working in Ohio for over 20 years, first at Ohio State, later at Columbus State Community College, and for the last 6 years at NAPE, which is a national organization, but an organization that's doing a lot of exciting and important work in Ohio through our partnership with Ohio Department of Education, Ohio Department of Higher Education, Ohio Association of Community Colleges, and the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. So it's wonderful to be with you all this morning, and I'm pleased we get the opportunity to think together about what it is to lead for equity in the context of COVID-19. And really, today's conversation grew out of email exchange that Christine and I had a few weeks ago, where she asked if I could be a part of this meeting and help us to think about what we can do in the context of what's happening in education and business to really reimagine the structures that we use in our work and how we support students and our communities to be successful. And so Christine just told you a little bit about NAPE, and I'm going to take you to our website in just a little while. But before I do, I want to get us started with a question that I want to invite everybody to respond to in the chat. And then I want to get to the chat. It's not letting me see it. So Christine, I'm going to the chat button and it is not showing up. Let me see if I can do it through the control. I guess not. So when we were on before, it was allowing me to see the chat. What I'm going to do is invite everyone in the chat to just list out what you see as the inequities that have been magnified in the context of COVID-19. And I see that I'm missing. So what are the inequities magnified by COVID-19 in your context? Just go ahead and put that into your chat, and hopefully I'll be able to see it. See if I can see it from here instead. There we go. Now it's showing up. Okay, so what is being said is stark differences in the resource that students have in their households, healthcare access, technology access, support for students from home, internet access, mental health, parental support during online learning, access to a caring adult, access to technology again, the opportunities to connect personally, technology access again, those with and without resources, technology, food insecurity, family ability to support learning, transportation, supervision in the home, students whose income supports the home, concerns about evictions, internet access, family structure, food insecurity, connectivity, lack of experiential learning in remote setting, executive functioning skills outside of a structured class schedule, children doing adult duties at home. I'm pulling out new ones. Lack of motivation from learners. Excellent. Please continue to include other information and thoughts. Parents who have had bad experiences in schools themselves and therefore are reluctant to engage in this virtual environment. That is so true. And it's really important that we take into account the experiences that family members and community members have had relative to education that may either breed trust or lead to distrust in that system. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is the importance of centering the voices and experiences of those we are serving, and to ensure that they are active in the process of looking at shared solutions. And then reduced efficacy for differentiation. Absolutely. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing these. So I want to share with you an excellent article, and I'm going to put this in the link right here. This actually was just published yesterday, very timely. I just put it into the chat. Highly recommend it. And it is titled, COVID-19 Having Devastating Impact on Children, Vaccine Won't Fix Everything. And what the article reminds us of is the critical need for access to high-speed internet and Wi-Fi. Because if you don't have that, you don't have access at all, right? And that is a huge issue, not only in Ohio, but all around the country right now, in terms of people having access to reliable high-speed internet and Wi-Fi that will not only support their learning, but support the needs of everybody else that they're living with, right? Everybody else in my household alone, my wife and I are both working from home, and I have 2 high school students. I was in the position to increase the Wi-Fi coming into my house back in the spring, but not everybody is, right? And so that is right there, a key piece. Then needs to be adequate access to technology for that online learning. Computer technology, we know that a smartphone is not sufficient, right? And that is something that an individual learner has access to for however long they need it. In many cases, students may be sharing technology with other family members, with siblings. They may only have it at certain times. And so that can definitely be an issue. And then the effects of that access to high-speed internet, Wi-Fi, and technology on school, and the ability for students to engage in any kind of hands-on learning and work-based learning. So, I mean, that's the starting point. Let's unpack it further. What about navigating the tools being used in school? All the different places students are expected to engage, navigate, structure their lives around, follow, be on top of, and be able to successfully submit. I mean, I'm living it right now as the parent of a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. And both my wife and I are educators and understand how the system works. And even we're having difficulty. I'm sure many of you are having to do this with your own family members. And so we're at a huge advantage insofar as we have been a part of this system and may understand better how it works. For many people, this may be completely foreign, may be very different. They may have had a totally different relationship with schools in the past, and now are expecting to be so actively engaged in the process and to be able to direct learning for the people in their home. Navigating this process in an online versus a hybrid learning environment. The school workload, what's required of students when they're not actually engaged in class, whether it's hybrid or in person, they're expected to often do a lot of work on their own, to structure that on their own, to complete those assignments, to get those turned in. If they fall behind, they're expected to catch up. Well, what if they don't have access to that reliable high-speed internet, Wi-Fi, and technology? How does that play in, and how does that add stress to those students? Older children having to take care of younger children, which was, I think, one of the things that somebody mentioned. And then parents and family members having to teach and guide instruction and learning at home when they're trying to navigate everything else, including one or more jobs or loss of jobs or all of the different types of challenges that everyone is facing. Access to food, job insecurity, shelter insecurity, sickness, trauma, and especially for many students, racialized trauma and fear of violence and trauma from loss. There's an increased level of depression and suicidal ideation for younger students. It's actually been a huge climb for students under 15 and then also high school age students. And then someone mentioned the importance of differentiation in instruction. So students needing differentiated instruction, especially English language learners, students with IEPs or 504 plans, so students with disabilities, not getting adequate accommodations and support. So for many students, especially those who have a 504 or IEP, they've had additional supports through teacher support, through instructional support in the classroom or at the school. They've had, in many cases, check-ins with teachers to help them to understand that there's an assignment due or whatever that might be. And a lot of those structures that have been in place for many students for many, many years have just been, boom, basically stripped away in many cases, or they were lost and now people are trying to pick back up. And then limited federal and state resources for educational institutions, increased pressure on teachers and administrators, and many students falling through the cracks. So in this article, what this reminds us is that what's really important is for us to be mindful of the disproportionate effects on communities of color and individuals with disabilities of all of these moving parts and their compounding effects on access and opportunity. These are a couple of quotes from this article from yesterday. The average student in grades 3 through 8 who took a math assessment this fall scored 5 to 10 percentile points behind students who took the same test last year, with Black, Hispanic, and poor students falling even further behind. An estimated 3 million vulnerable students who are homeless, in foster care, have disabilities, or learning English appear to be not in school at all. And when we look at the challenge, I mean, I think schools have done the best they can in so many cases. But one of the biggest challenges is when we had to all turn on a dime, all that differentiation that occurs in education had to almost go out the door in many ways. And what's happening now is, as this is saying, those children most affected will be those facing racial, economic, and other inequities that have only become more pronounced since the pandemic began. And many of those data I just shared with you are absolutely disproportionate when you look at communities of color and when you look at income. And so I want to share with you an image that we use in our work. And that is helping to differentiate between looking at things through an equality lens and looking at things through an equity lens. Equality is everybody gets the same thing. And what we've seen is when we had to switch on a dime from in-person class 100% to online class within a week in many cases, right? That had to happen in such a way that everybody got the same thing. But as you can see in this image, what are some of the things that you notice right away in an equality structure? Go ahead and add this into your chat. I can see it now. So when you look at the equality image, what do you notice? The disparities still exist. I invite you to add your thoughts, your comments. What do you notice? You have individuals of various sizes, right? Trying to access a whiteboard or a blackboard, depending on the medium of instruction. So this person is reaching it, right? This person is reaching it. This person can't really reach it, and this person cannot reach it and is dangerously situated on a box, right? When we look at equity, what do we see that is different? Go ahead and add that into your chat as well. Somebody said most of the students' needs are not being met totally. Some are given more. Equality equals everyone is given access to the same resource. Equity, everyone is given, I can't read it that fast. It just popped up. Let's see what this said. Everyone is given what needs their specific needs. Yes. The best solution for everyone. Appropriate access for all. Resources change based on the individual. Each child is given what they need to be successful. Accommodations that promote accessibility. Yes. So if you think of equity, now I have ended up having a very heated conversation with somebody. They were really upset when they saw this image and they felt like this box was taken away for this student. And what they were finally able to get their head around is that this box was not taken away because this student doesn't need a box. It's a huge difference, because what often happens is when we differentiate instruction, learning, supports, recognition of individual differences, it's interpreted as taking something away from someone else, seen as a zero-sum game. If I take away one thing, or if I add one thing, it means something else is taken away. And I really want to challenge us and to equip us with tools to be able to articulate this to others, that it is not a matter of taking something away. It's a matter of recognizing what people need to have access and to be successful. So this individual here can still access learning without the box. And this individual needs 2 boxes. And then this individual needs a different way of accessing the learning. In this case, a laptop, right? So that's an accommodation so that they can fully be able to experience that environment. One of the things to think about is equality is focused on the group. Everybody gets the same thing. Equity is focused on the individual. And I think a lot of where our challenges have been is that need, because of speed, to have everybody fit into that same spot and not being able to differentiate for our students. So with that, I want to invite you all to share your thoughts. What's resonating with you? What kinds of questions do you have? Please use the chat because we don't have our mics engaged. The COVID schooling is more equality than equity. Absolutely, I agree. Where do you start in addressing these issues? Great question, Tracy. When each box has a price tag, how many supports can a district afford? Excellent point. Districts need to support one another. Yes. And one of the things that I want us to think about, and absolutely since this all started in March, what became immediately apparent is none of us has the answer alone, and none of us should be doing this alone, right? So how can we support one another, and how can we utilize all the resources around us? And so I think this gathering of educators and education leaders and business partners and business leaders is so important, because the answer is very much in that partnership. I was reading several different articles earlier this week about, the incredible speed of the vaccines that have been distributed starting this week, and saying in these articles, this was in the New York Times, that this would not have happened if it had not been a collaborative process between government and business to innovate and for government to actually take on some of that risk, right? So in this case, the answer to these complex issues, I think, comes in our partnership within communities across all aspects of that community. I got away from looking at the chat and I see there's a lot going on here. So let me catch back up. How can more people help considering distance, no gatherings? How can businesses help? I think about all of the empty offices and high-speed connections. Ooh, yeah. So how can those resources that are currently just sitting actually be leveraged to provide access to technology for those who need it? That's a great question. I bet there's an answer there. It takes an incredible amount of resources. It takes more than just educators. It takes a village. Absolutely. Yeah, so somebody was just indicating one major challenge will be to create supports in the COVID environment, but we must also be focused on the transition back to a normal school environment as we prepare for the end of this school year and especially into next school year, from what people are saying. How can industry be better engaged to support? Yeah, how do we get away from checklists and checked boxes to really understanding the importance of students continuing the learning process? So that brings me to some things I want us to think about. And this comes to work that we've been doing at NAPE, especially through a project called the Equity Leadership Academy, which is focused around post-secondary students, and the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, which is a process that's happening in career technical education, but happening now increasingly across more and more of our work, where we're really being intentional about centering the voices and experiences of students who often lack power or voice in education, which of course is ironic, but true. And we can learn so much by really engaging students to see what their needs are, but what also can be creative solutions. How do we center the experiences and needs of parents? And when I say parents, I mean family members. I'm using a general term because there are many, many different family makeups, but how do we engage those who are working most closely with our students? Community members, I think, are a critical piece of the puzzle. So not only education and business, but our community leaders, all the different supports that exist in the community who are also looking for supports. And how can we leverage that? And how can we also center the experiences of the teachers who are, experiencing so much pressure right now, trying to be creative, trying to find solutions, in helping us to look at answers to these complex problems. And I want us to really look at this through an asset lens, because what often happens when there are differential outcomes between groups in any given situation, those outcomes become attributed to that group rather than recognized in the context of the system and how that system has been set up to lead to those outcomes. So if we want to see different outcomes, then we have to set up a different system. And so when you look at the disproportionate effects of all of this on communities of color, on communities with fewer economic resources, that is a result of the system, not a result of anything inherent in any of those communities. So what are the assets that these key stakeholders bring with them? And how can those experiences and voices be centered in the shared solutions to these problems? So I want to throw that question to you and have you reflect on that and think about and enter into the chat your thoughts on this. And while you're formulating your thoughts, I want to look back at the chat. One of the questions is, what roles are legislators truly willing to play to address inequities? I question their commitment to doing so, and I completely understand your question, your concern, and that is an important part of the work that we do both as an individual organization, but also in coalition with others, including as a member of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. One of the things we've been doing even this week is framing the key issues that need to be brought forward to the next administration, and what kinds of legislative supports need to happen at the federal level. But you all, as leaders in your community, in this community in Central Ohio, also have the ability to appeal to our state legislators, who are often those that the federal legislators who represent Ohio look to for guidance, right? And look to for examples where you say, we absolutely must have legislation, we must have policy that will drive change. It can't just trickle. It can't come from the grassroots. It's got to also come from the legislation. Demonstration of collaboration to provide a vaccine is now a bar that has been set. How do we leverage that to solve the equity issue? That is a great question. And so, I think part of that, and it's interesting that the very next bullet on this slide is, how can power be shared and redistributed? One of the things that is absolutely apparent is that the differences in outcomes that we're seeing right now that are being exacerbated in this context have a lot to do with power, right? Distribution of power, distribution of influence, distribution of resources. And to really build a system that has different outcomes baked into that system The way power is distributed has to change. So I bring us back to the centering of voices and experiences and narratives, because those often can illustrate what's going on and may resonate and speak to our business and industry partners when we're coming from the education realm and making the case. Things like affordable and universal Wi-Fi access is happening in some parts of the country, but it's happening through partnership with business and industry, where industry sees the need for universal access to Wi-Fi and what that can mean. And then with that comes access for everyone in a community or in an area to be able to participate as a starting point in what we're talking about. So one of the things that is really important as we're looking at next steps and we're looking at shared solutions is recognizing that systems are set up to get the outcomes they get. So if we want to have different outcomes, then the system itself has to be reimagined, restructured, and we cannot return to the status quo. Because if we return to the status quo, we'll continue getting the same outcomes, right? So how can we use this total interruption to the way all of us have done our work up to last March as an opportunity to rethink, reimagine, and restructure the way we relate to students, the way we engage in education, the way we engage with technology, the way we engage between education and business, to be able to solve and address the complex problems that we're facing right now and that we may continue to face. And I want to give you an opportunity to react to that. I haven't seen the chat lighting up again, so let's light it up. Maybe people are pondering. So I want us to think about, how do we construct a system with different outcomes? And I think it really has to do with partnership. I think it has to do with breaking out of silos. I think it has to do with creativity and innovation, centering the voices of students and their family members, the absolute recognition that we're going to need to catch students up, and that can't all fall on the resources in a particular building or even a particular district. But one of the suggestions from this article that I was just talking about is a complete concerted effort on the part of education, business, community to tutor students and help them to get back to where they need to be able to be successful as they move forward. We're going to need to be intentional about mental health support. And this article that I am referencing likens the response to recovering from a natural disaster. So what it was like for New Orleans, for example, and the interruption to the whole educational system in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and what it required as a concerted community effort to be able to rebuild the systems around education, around work, around work-based learning, almost taking a similar approach to the work ahead. definitely grace and patience, which is something we're all needing to give each other, and absolutely, to the points of several people, resources coming from multiple directions in multiple ways, and not just loading more and more on institutions with limited resources. Christine saying partnerships between multiple sectors, education, business industry, community organizations are even more critical now to take a collective approach to tackling these issues. Yes, and collective impact can be a really powerful model in doing that, where we leverage our various resources to be able to address this complex problem. And so one of the things that the article says is, if we had a nationwide tutoring corps, an increased focus on how trauma affects learning, a sweeping effort to connect every home to the internet, and a major shift to community schools, this idea where families can get social services in the same place where their children learn, then coming out of this process can actually transform education as we move forward. And so if we think about the time being now, where do we have the ability to affect change in our spheres of control and our spheres of influence? How do we ensure that, I think one thing this advisory council is a great example of a community of leaders across different areas that can collaborate for shared solutions. And I really encourage you all to think about how to center the experiences of those who often don't have a voice in those solutions as you think about where do we go from here, especially students, especially family members, especially teachers. And we at NAPE have been really leaning in to these issues and working with our state partners, working with local education agencies in helping folks to think about and plan for how they're going to be responding both in the short term and the long term, building their capacity to use an equity lens in all aspects of their work, rather than defaulting to that equality group, everybody gets the same thing, but really recognizing the need for everyone to get what they need to be successful. But to the point of one of the people who was chatting earlier, we can't expect all of those answers to be fulfilled by individual institutions or even districts, but through all of the different resources in the community. So you think about Central Ohio, oh my gosh, we have so many institutions of higher education who can be fantastic partners, who have very strong connections to business and industry. We've got such strong school districts all around the area. And so looking at how to be able to collaborate in that process, I think, is where important answers can come. And we're going to be having our National Summit for Educational Equity in April, whose focus is on advocates for equity. And we'll have several strains that are being offered of different sessions focused on equitable learning environments in a COVID-19 reality, access and equity in CTE and STEM, fostering a diverse workforce, and how we can understand the levers that we have through public policy, including a very exciting virtual public policy day. The whole thing is virtual. It's only $99 for members, $149 for non-members, and it'll be a fabulous opportunity for people to engage. I want to share with you some resources. This is the article I was talking about, and I definitely recommend taking a look at it. It is well worth the read. And then on our website, where you see information about the summit, are a number of other resources that can help you in your work ahead. So I was talking about the Equity Leadership Academy, but one of the things is there are a number of free resources that can help you as you're working with students and getting them still excited about the programs and pathways that are available. This is a project that has been funded through Toyota USA Foundation called Make the Future, Connecting Girls to Manufacturing. There's lots of terrific resources that can help educators to get young women and girls excited about advanced manufacturing and STEM CTE programs, particular focus on increasing access for women and girls of color. When it comes to youth apprenticeship and work-based learning, we're part of something called the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeship. And we just this year created a new toolkit focused on equity and youth apprenticeship programs, which also translates very well to other work-based learning experiences. And we're going to continue this work in this national partnership over the next year. And we'll be creating additional resources that we will make available through our network. You'll find other resources specifically for students with disabilities in a project called Pipeline to Career Success for Students with Disabilities. Some terrific resources to help us in looking at effective mechanisms and effective strategies to support students with disabilities in career technical education. And these are all resources that are available through our website. So I encourage you to take a look at these. You can participate, subscribe right here to our listserv if you haven't in the past, and just be in the loop as materials and resources are shared with the field, including many that will be coming out this winter and in preparation for our national summit. And so really, before kind of taking a few questions, I want to share with you a quote that really resonates with me, because especially in times of challenge and very complex issues like we're experiencing right now, we can feel very much alone and sometimes feel like, how can I do this? But I think this quote is really helpful. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something I can do. And so as we look at where we go from here, I think leveraging the relationships, the partnerships, the work that you're doing through this advisory council, through your other collaborative efforts, I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, connecting with Columbus State, with Ohio State, with the other institutions of higher education in Central Ohio to look at how to leverage those resources as well. And our business and industry partners who are both on the call today and who may not yet be engaged in the process, really look at ways to be able to leverage the work that they're doing and the partnership that can happen to really serve the needs of students, which will ultimately have a positive effect on business and industry in Central Ohio, in terms of a prepared workforce, in terms of a productive workforce, in terms of a rich community that can be successful in the future. And so here's my contact information, here's our website, and I appreciate the opportunity to have been able to engage with you all this morning. So Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you to see if there are any specific questions you have or anything else you'd like for me to elaborate on.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. We really appreciate you taking time to share this morning, because I know you had to fit this in your very busy schedule. So I really appreciate it. So Ben only has a couple of minutes to stay with us because he's on to his next meeting that he has to help facilitate. So if you have any follow-up questions for Ben, feel free to send those my way. Feel free to send those Ben's way. But again, we really appreciate you sharing this information and all the great work and resources that NAPE is doing. So thank you, Ben. I really appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. I hope this was helpful. I hope that some of the framing and also the comments and thoughts from your peers have been helpful. And I definitely encourage us all to take a step back, because I think we've all been churning, right? We've all been trying to solve problems as they've happened, and have done an extraordinary job, with what we've been given. I think at this point, we need to look at where folks are falling through the cracks, where those concerns are, and how we can fully leverage the incredible resources in this community. Like I said, I've called Central Ohio my home for nearly 23 years. I've never lived anywhere this long. I'm originally from New York, but came here to go to grad school at Ohio State. And, Central Ohio has so many resources, is such a rich community. And how do we really look at how we can leverage all of those resources in partnership, in support of our community members, to help us to work through this and to come out on the other end better than we started.
All right, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate it. And I know you have to run to another meeting, so I appreciate all of the information and resources that you shared with us today. So thank you again.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Please stay in touch. And I'll look forward to seeing you all at the summit in April if you are able to join us. And like I said, it's virtual, so you can do it right from your home. All right, take care, everybody.
Thanks.
I'll stop sharing so that you can have it back.
Great.
There we go. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ben. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to John Hambrick, who is also one of my colleagues at the ESC, and he is going to introduce our next speaker, who's going to be sharing some information with us this morning.
Great. Thank you, Christine. And again, everyone, thank you so much for being here this morning on our snowy Central Ohio Business Advisory Council meeting. Good thing nobody had a heavy commute, I hope. It's my honor really to introduce Amy. I met Amy several years ago in a workforce development relationship. And she's an innovative leader here in Central Ohio. And we're so grateful to have her and her passion to help our young students and our business partners. I know Amy has been with Southwestern City Schools since 2013. She now serves as coordinator for career technical education. Amy's been featured on panels around the state discussing workforce development and career readiness. Those events included the Central Ohio Workforce Summit, Ohio ProStart, the National Career Pathways Network, and in 2018, Amy was awarded the Outstanding Career Technical Administrator of the Year by the Ohio Association of Career Technical Education. So I'm excited. Amy is bringing to us great insights on a pathway that's been developed for in-demand skills that has direct correlation and feeds directly into our Central Ohio in-demand industries. So Amy, thanks so much for being here. And I think you have access to be able to share your screen.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate all those kind words. It's hard to sit here and listen to that sometimes, but I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm much more used to Google Meet, so we'll see how it goes on Zoom here. But before I start off, I just want to say it's really timely in my presentation based on what Ben just said, because our goal and focus overall with the customer service program is to provide access and equity to a specific population of students, but also to raise high expectations and academic achievement. So I'm going to see what I can do here. This works. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, overall in Southwestern City Schools, I just want to start off. I'm a big picture person. So anytime you hear me speak or talk to me, I always go back to the big picture because that's how my brain operates. So I always start with that. So I'm going to do that a little bit today with you as I share how we got to where we are. And I'm going to talk about our customer service program specifically and the focus on ensuring that all students have a plan. And in that big picture, for me, I'm very passionate that every one of our students in Southwestern City Schools, when they graduate from high school, they have a plan. And that includes every student. So that is the thought process behind how we got to this moment. Let's see here. Several years ago, and I just want to start off again, I'm the big picture person and how my brain operates and where I get my ideas and thoughts. But several years ago, I had an opportunity to go to New Orleans to a conference, and Jamie Cassip, the Chief Education Evangelist from Google, it's a big title, but anyways, he spoke, and he started off and asking all of us, what problem do you want to solve? And even talking specifically about students and careers, it's not, what do you want to do when you grow up, but what problem do you want to solve? And I started thinking about that personally in my career, in my work, is what problem did I want to solve? And the problem really that I wanted to solve, and the thing that got me thinking, was we have students leaving Southwestern City Schools that don't have a plan. We have students that think they have a plan, or maybe have a goal, but they don't have a plan on how to accomplish that goal. And so I had many students, graduates between the age of 18 and 30, coming back to me and saying, I started here, I didn't do well, I don't know what to do, I'm lost. In Southwestern City Schools, we also have 84 different languages that are spoken in our district. So if you take that information, graduates that have come back to me and say, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know where I'm going, I've tried this, I have $80,000 in school loans, 2 years of school, and I don't have a direction. We have 84 different languages in our district, so we have students that come from diverse backgrounds. So I thought about that in Southwestern and what problem I wanted to solve, and basically I summed it up is our students are graduating from high school without a plan. They think they have a plan, but they don't. And so the world is so moving at a rapid pace. There's a lot of opportunities in Central Ohio, and how can I systematically look at our students, who we are, and help them with a plan for life after high school? And I asked myself, what are we missing in programs, options, courses, and experiences? And we even mentioned in Ben's presentation about some of the inequities. All of our students don't have the same experiences. They might come to school and sit in the same classroom, but when they leave us and they go home, their experiences in life, career opportunities, work-based learning, and just even travel, any opportunities are very, very diverse for our students. And so what are we missing, and these are some questions that I asked myself, what are we missing? What do we need to do? And some of the things that I had to think about, and as I was thinking about the presentation when Ben was speaking, the obvious bullet point I don't have on here is knowing your students. And so as I'm thinking about his presentation, I was thinking about what I wrote here, and I'm thinking, okay, that was kind of an unstated given, that you have to know your students, you need to know your demographics, you need to know your population. So that's the first thing in developing a plan and looking at our students, knowing what courses we can offer through ODE, knowing credentials. I put in blue, knowing our business and industry needs, because everything that we do in Southwestern aligns with in-demand careers. There's no sense in us creating an innovative pathway and trying to be innovative with students and plans if it doesn't align to an in-demand career. We can't just hope they find a job somewhere, and maybe Utah has one position somewhere. That's not the programs that we're looking at. I need to know laws, funding rules, post-secondary pathways, and know my teachers and know my students and my demographics. And as I've mentioned, in Southwestern City Schools, this customer service program and pathway was born out of understanding our students, the 84 different languages that we have. It was also born out of my very, very first curriculum meeting that I sat in 2013 when I came to Southwestern. I looked at our data, I looked at our follow-ups to see what our students were doing after high school, and only 37% of our students that English was their second language were actually working in their career field, were actually employed. So they might have taken advantage of a program or a course, but they were not employed at the level that they needed to be employed. So knowing that information, knowing the pathways, the business need, knowing our students these were just some of the questions that I asked myself. And I put this on here. So for any of you, and I know I have several of my career tech colleagues on this meeting today, and I know they all do this same process, but I just wanted for some of the business partners and some of the other folks out there to realize there's a lot of layers and a lot of steps of things to connect in developing a plan and a pathway. And so knowing what our problem is, I want to solve, I want to make sure our students have a plan, knowing our demographics, knowing that we have some students here that English is their second language. And I wanted to really work on using that as an advantage and not a disadvantage. Too many times we say, well, we need to get them ready for this or change this. And my thought was, why don't we utilize that as a resource and an advantage to these students and connect them to in-demand careers? And so the action came, and I put this on here. My first bullet is being yes and, not a yes but person. And I had an opportunity to partner with Apple, and we have a partnership with them. And the very first presentation I went to, this is what they talked about. And that has resonated with me so much, because how often do we look at a problem that we want to solve, or look at an issue, and we sit in a meeting and someone says, yes, I've identified that, but this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. And in order to be innovative and connect to the needs, we have to be yes, and this will benefit the person. And yes, and these are going to be good opportunities. I also added on here, you cannot wait until you have everything figured out to move forward. If any of us, especially in this COVID-19 world, if we sat and had to have everything figured out before we moved, we'd be still stuck back on March 11th. You know, we've had to move, and so you don't have things figured out. Another thing I put here is belief versus behavior. And even thinking about Ben's presentation today, there's some people that are going to believe the same way that you do, and they're going to see the problem from the same vantage point you do. But then there's also times when you have to require people to behave in a certain way before they believe. And I put this on here, and this is a little bit of the background, but some of the thoughts and things that I've had to sort through as we started this new program, because not everyone saw the same problem as I did. Not everyone saw it from the same vantage point, but in the end, I needed us to all behave in a way that provided opportunity for students. And the interesting thing is, I believe once students behave in a way, and adults behave in a way they need to, sometimes they do believe it. They see it now, but some people need to see it before they act, and other people need to act before they see. So, and part of that action is support, professional development, and accountability. I mentioned in the other slide, knowing your staff. Our program, and when I get into the next slides here, we could not do this without our staff and our teacher. And I knew our teachers, and I knew one of our teachers that had a passion for business, for professionalism, and she was really yearning to do something in a much deeper way. And so I reached out to her, and she's the person that's been along on the ride with me here. And then the last thing is investing in people. None of this is possible without people, and it's the business partners, it's your staff, it's your teachers, and it's your students and families. So that gets me to the first few slides there. We're just all on my thought processes and how I even got to this point and why I got to this point. So our students needed a plan. We have 84 different languages spoken. We have a huge need in our district to connect our students with very tangible, systematic approaches to in-demand careers. And we had a group of students that have multiple languages and dual languages, and my focus was to use that as an advantage for them as they're looking for a career. And then when you look at the business and industry in Central Ohio and our 13 county region, insurance, banking, and healthcare is huge in our area. I was at a Success Bound conference, and the economic developers were presenting, and at that point, there were 14,000 job postings that customer service skills were number one. So the number one skill that was listed in job postings was customer service. And that was 14,000 job postings, which is amazing to me. And that was a skill. Yesterday, I went on to Ohio Means Jobs, and I put in customer service as a skill as part of the job, not the job title, but as part of a job. there's 74,000 jobs posted on Ohio Means Jobs right now, that one of the skills needed and necessary in industry is customer service. So I think we would all agree in just our own world that having people out in the work world, no matter what industry they are in, knowing how to get along with people and serve customers is a skill that's lacking, and our students need that now more than ever. When we talk about how things have changed since March, very often our students aren't interfacing with people in a real world. They're on virtually, or maybe they've been to the store 1 or 2 times. Their world of people has really shrunk. And so having these customer service skills is paramount. So at the same time, I was going through this process in my own mind, thinking about what is it our students need? What is that problem we want to solve? That every student has a plan. We have in-demand careers in insurance, banking, healthcare here in Central Ohio. Customer service is a top skill. And knowing that there was this need, I researched and looked around at some things in Ohio and just could not find a really tangible curriculum and opportunity for our students. At the same time, I had the opportunity to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and present at the ACTE Best Practices Conference, and it was actually held in Albuquerque. Part of the process there was we got to tour Central New Mexico Community College and all their innovative programs. And as I'm on the tour, walking around the campus, there was a little lounge area with a table, and there was some flyers sitting on the table. And I glanced down and I saw a flyer said bilingual customer service certificate. So I picked up the flyer, looked at the courses, and I thought, this is exactly what we need in Ohio. This is what my students need, because they need those business skills and customer service, and they need that language and that high level literacy skill. So I brought it back from the trip. I called the person that gave me the tour and asked if he could connect me with the person that would have potentially written up that flyer and organized this program. So he gave me a person's name. So I called them, and that was in November, and said, hey, my name's Amy Shakad. I was out there taking a tour. I saw your certificate, and I really want my students here in Columbus, in Ohio, to take your certificate course, because this is what we need. We have multiple entry-level jobs in insurance, banking, healthcare, and in manufacturing needs customer service. And I need that bilingual piece. Is there a way that we can bring your courses to us here in Ohio? So they hung up the phone. About a week later, called me, said we can figure this out. So they spent from November to July digitizing their entire customer service certificate program for us. And in July, I took my teacher, when I mentioned that staff person that was engaged, I took her, she and I went to Albuquerque, and she trained with all the professors there to be the facilitator instructor back here in Ohio. And so then less than a year from the time I was in Albuquerque, we had 16 students here in Central Ohio sitting in our class in Southwestern taking a Central New Mexico customer service program. And so it's just been an amazing opportunity for our students. I wanted to share a little bit about the classes and the academic courses that this program presents. So for our business partners that are on here, we have 2 certificates. We have a bilingual customer service and a non-bilingual. And you can see the courses there. I won't read all of those to you, but there's 17 college credits for bilingual and 16 college credits for the non-bilingual. And students take this course in our classroom with our teacher as the facilitator, but the instructor is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And one of the things that I love about the customer service program is that it was written and developed out of business and industry need. So basically in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they had multiple businesses come set up shop because they have a big bilingual population in Albuquerque. So a lot of industries, businesses came and they hired folks and they got them working and realized they might be bilingual in a personal way, but not bilingual in a professional way that they can communicate on a professional level as a business partner and what needed. So they reached out to Central New Mexico Community College, and this program was written 100% out of business partner need and what their individuals needed to be successful in the world of work. And so these are the two pathways that our students take advantage of. It's a year-long program. It's 2 periods a day, and our students all do have technology. We purchased every one of them a laptop, so every student has a laptop. They work independently, facilitated with our teacher there in all of these courses, and they're in the same class. Bilingual and non-bilingual are all in the same setting there. So these are the academic courses that we work on in our program. And then the customer service skills are very intentionally developed around communication, as you can imagine. Time management, which that's one thing that I think COVID has really challenged our students in, is that time management. When you're not sitting in a classroom with a teacher there helping you manage your time and you have to do it on your own, that's one of the things that's been very apparent for us and our students, that's been a difficult thing for them. But this program really works with that. Phone and email etiquette, again, a professional skill that students often didn't have. Many of our students didn't even know what it was like to pick up a regular telephone. They've only been on a cell phone. So how to answer a phone, understanding what a busy signal is, because they've never heard that before. And email etiquette, you know, how you email in a professional setting is all a part of our program. Professional skills, adaptivity, to be adaptive to the world of work, which again, talking about COVID, that's one thing it's taught all of us, that we've had to adapt to our changing environment. It also teaches students self-control and responsibility. When they are interfacing with a customer and potentially that customer might not be very kind on the other end, there's probably sometimes they want to say things or respond in a way that would not be professional, but this program teaches them how to control themselves and to be professional in their responses, and then to be responsible for the entire gamut of information. When you look at the industries that we're working with, insurance, healthcare, banking, you're talking about having access to people's information, and there's a high level of responsibility that aligns with that. And then empathy. Again, when you're talking about a customer, to be able to empathize with them, with their concern, the reason that they're calling you and the reason that they're reaching out to you. This program adds a layer of that. There's many scenarios in this program so that students have to really work hard to look at things from someone else's vantage point, which I think all of us, you know, I'm speaking to myself, sometimes need a reminder of that, because it's easy to respond to someone from our own vantage point, but to forget how they are responding because of where they're standing or sitting or their background. So these are the skills that this program develops and teaches students. And some of the employment opportunities just at a base level are customer service reps, a client service rep, online support specialists, bilingual customer service rep, logistics representative. Again, logistics is huge in Central Ohio, and it's not void of customer service and partnerships there. And then retail service managers. Two of the credentials that our students not only taking the college credits, but our students also earn 2 industry recognized credentials in this program. They earn the customer service credential, and from the National Retail Federation, the retail fundamentals credential. And both of those credentials offer a lot of the same and similar standards as our college courses do. But they look at careers in industries as well. They look at a big push on the logistics part, because retail is logistics, getting supplies in and out. And then a lot in the communication field as well. So these are some of the employment opportunities and entry-level opportunities. And one of my goals in going back to that, what's your plan, and all of our students having a plan, and also going back to the lack of experiences and opportunities students have, our big picture goal in this program is to get students connected at an entry-level position that can lead them to multiple opportunities in a career. So for instance, not one of our employers, and I'm going to go to our partners on the next slide here, HKT Teleservices, City Barbecue, BMW Financial, T-Tech, Ohio Health, Fortuity, VSP, and they all provide partnerships in a different level. But I'm just going to point out City Barbecue real quick. I know at our last business advisory meeting, we had City Barbecue showcased, and out of that has come some really cool opportunities for Southwestern. So I'm really excited. But for instance, City Barbecue has a huge customer service presence here in Central Ohio. Their headquarters are here. And no matter where your restaurant is or what city you are in, the calls all come into Dublin, Ohio, to the City Barbecue headquarters. So for our students that know they want to do something in the business field, they want to work with customers and people, but they don't really know how they can interface that and what they're good at because they haven't had experiences in finance necessarily, or human resources, or contracts, or legal aspects, they can get started in any of these entry-level career opportunities and be exposed to all of those industries. And so one of the big picture goals of this program is to provide those opportunities and experiences and a vision for a career that a student potentially never, ever thought or imagined that they could do because they didn't know anything about it. And City Barbecue is one of those places that has multiple levels of opportunities. BMW Financial Services is a great partner. We had a great partnership, ready to pull the plug on a lot of things in March, and then COVID came, so we're circling back with them right now. But when they saw the curriculum and what our students are learning and able to do, they wanted to hire 100% of our students. And at BMW Financial, students can get into that career field, into that company, and say, you know, I like the legal aspect of this. I didn't even realize I even liked anything with law because I've never had exposure to it. And BMW provides tuition assistance so students can continue on with their career and their education and their training. HKT Teleservices was our very first partner, and they hired 10 of our students the first year. So 10 of our students were hired to work at HKT Teleservices, and they support customer service with some major national companies. T-Tech, I was just on a call with them yesterday, so I got to learn about them, and there's some cool ways that we can partner. Fortuity has come out and spoken to our students and provided some information in that aspect to say, here's some career opportunities and here's some ways we can support. VSP Vision Services, they again have been a great partner early on in providing some resources and support to our students. And what do those skills look like in a real meaningful way? Because again, our students don't know what they don't know because they haven't had the opportunity to experience any of these things. So VSP has been just great to provide some of those experiences and opportunities. And Ohio Health has been a long-term partner with us as well. So these are just some of our current and some of our new, and we have multiple other ones, but some of the main partners that we have. I will say it's been a challenge with the COVID in our students because, as Ben mentioned, and we all mentioned on our very first comment in the last presentation, that engaging students when they're remote is hard for multiple reasons. Many of our students that we're serving through this program are working a couple jobs to help support their families. Many of them are watching younger siblings, so it's hard to engage. And so we're really hopeful and trying to be very intentional in the connection with our partners and our students so that they don't lose hope, that they keep persevering, because right now it's really hard when our students are pulled in so many different directions and we don't have them in class to support them. So, and that's one way I think if you're a business partner in this meeting today, I want to just reach out and ask if there's any way that we could partner. And one of the things that I'm thinking, and one of the challenges, and I'll just tell you what several of these partners have mentioned, because of the nature of customer service and the information as a customer service rep you might be responsible for or know of, especially in insurance and banking and healthcare, that oftentimes our students can't begin the opportunity to work unless they have graduated from high school and they're 18. So that puts us a little bit behind the 8 ball a little bit with our students. And so if any of you are out there as a business partner, and we could partner with an externship or a reverse internship where you have a problem maybe you need to solve in your business that you don't have time for, that you could give that project to our students so they could be working on that under the guidance of our teacher, because our students really need, and when we talk about that that equity, again, our students all need different access and different experiences. And so students specifically in this program need to understand how these customer service skills are going to connect in the world of work. And so I need those business partners that can provide some of those experiences and opportunities for our students, understanding that you're not going to be able to put a 17-year-old, with someone's information and data because they haven't graduated from high school, but how could we be creative and bring something into the school, a small project that they can work on that our students can understand and have some ownership in, and to see where this is going to take them in their career. So that's kind of my ask on that part. I don't have really anything else except to see if you have any questions. I know I kind of went fast through the presentation. I know we don't have a lot of time. If there's anything I can do, if you want to put anything in the chat, I can.
Amy, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm Babia, thank you. I'm sorry I came late, but I'm glad I still got on board because this intrigued me, your presentation. I want to know if you will be able to give the same presentation if I get a group of businesses together for you to talk to.
Absolutely. You
Okay,
tell me
I
when, and
have
I'll
a
be there.
lot in mind. And I'm assuming, I know this is recorded, but do you have some verbiage that I can use when I'm talking to these business leaders?
I guess I can. Do you think that they would want to know the purpose and the outcome, or because I do have a description of what it is that students are going to do and what they're learning, and then the focus, or I can come up with an elevator pitch if you'd like that.
More of an elevator speech of why I want you to attend this meeting.
Okay, I can. Okay,
And
I can do that.
Kind of that with a follow-up, kind of like the reason why you should, what benefit it will be for you, basically.
Okay.
I know most of them will hop on because I said so, but I still would like to have some grasp on that because this is a great opportunity. I work for AFLAC and our corporate office is bilingual.
Okay.
So it's Spanish primarily, but
and that's primarily what our main language is as well.
Okay, that was going to be my second question. Is it just Spanish that this certification is for? And I say that because in the tech world industry, we have a lot of individuals that are oh my God, I cannot think of the language now.
We have
I
Somalian.
cannot think of it. Not Somalian, but oh my gosh, I cannot think of it.
Bhutanese, is it Bhutanese Nepalese?
Yeah, but there's another one. I cannot believe I threw a brain fart here. I cannot think of the language, but it's a primary language and they have a customer service call center, but it would be awesome for this second language. I just can't think of it right now.
Well, that's all right. We have the way our program is set up and the way that Central New Mexico is, obviously their primary dual language is Spanish, and ours is as well, but we have not excluded students that are bilingual in any language because the focus isn't on their native language. The focus is on honing their English language skills in a professional manner. And so any student that is bilingual can take our program, but the majority of our students are Spanish speaking and bilingual. And then we do have a couple other languages as well.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, definitely I would like to, I'll put my email information in the chat box.
Okay.
But I would like to connect with you and I think I can get it.
And Amy, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And Babia is a great connector here in Central Ohio. So I'm glad she was on the call to be able to represent. And I'll share with you too, Amy, that you see the screens and everybody's very calm, but there's a lot of chat stream going on that you don't see right now through us, and the feet are moving. I'm telling you, people are excited about this, and they're asking me, hey John, help me connect with this, help me connect with that. So this is just fantastic, and I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to share that with our group here. And I do want to open up just before we transition back to Christine, any other questions that you have for Amy that you could either just ask through your microphone or put in the chat?
Well, I really appreciate everyone's time today and allowing me to speak. I have to log off here in a minute. I'm actually teaching dental, our dental students this morning. They needed a sub, so I'm subbing for dental. So I'm going to put on my dental hat and do that here at 10:30. So, but I really appreciate everyone's time. And I do think, just as everyone has said today, it's all about a collaboration and connection. And that's the benefit of this, because none of us can do any of these things on our own. And so this is one great way that we can all come together and connect. So I appreciate John and Christine for leading this.
That's right. And thank you so much. And to everyone here, the presentations are going to be shared in an email at a later date. And Amy, you sure did knock it out of the park. And definitely, I think we are all acting in a way that we can believe in this system. So this is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, thanks, Amy. You bet. And Christine, I turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Good luck with your dental.
Yeah, here we go. Everybody brush your teeth today. See ya.
All right, we just have a couple of other things that we want to share with you because I know we're getting close to our time here. But I did want to update you on the fact that we have work groups that happen in between these meetings, because when we talk about it really does take a collaboration between all of us to move this work forward and to focus on these issues that have emerged, not only during this time, but even before COVID-19 hit. It's important for us to really come together and work as a group to tackle some of these problems. So these work groups have been meeting. We would love it if anyone else would like to get involved in them. But just to give you an update, we do have a parent and community engagement work group that has been meeting. It's a great group. We have business and industry, we have school representatives, we have parents on the work group, and we're really thinking about how we can share out that message that students have many pathways that will help them be prepared for the future, because the way that students prepare for our workforce in the present time looks different than perhaps what parents and community members are used to. So we're really working on developing messaging to help support our parents and guardians in understanding the opportunities that are available to their students. We're working on creating a communication toolbox to help us do that, so that all of our partners will be able to just pick and choose and use those tools. And we're also working together to develop some virtual activities to help support that work, including looking at in-demand jobs week for 2021 and what that looks like. So it's really about communicating that message out, and again, leveraging those resources that our parents and our guardians and our community members bring, and bringing them into this work as well. How can we do that collaboratively? So Carolyn Weirda is on the call. So Carolyn, I don't know if you have your camera on, if you want to give a little wave, but Carolyn's leading that work for us. And like I said, we would love it if you would want to get involved, if that's a passion of yours. The other part that we've been working on is our work-based learning work group, really continuing to look at building out our pre-apprenticeship programs and our apprenticeships, connecting with other businesses to increase the opportunities that are available for our students. We've been working a lot with middle schools too, because we really want to expose students early to all of the different opportunities that are out there in Central Ohio and all of those things that our business and industry partners bring. And then we're also looking at increasing STEM conversation and partnerships. And in all of that, equity is a huge underlying piece of that. So, you know, as we talk about how do we continue to collaborate and how do we continue to leverage each other's resources, our work groups are one way if you have an interest in engaging more deeply in the work. So if you're looking to get involved in that, we would love to have you. So I will. Yep, go ahead, John.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. You know, gosh, many of you were here today. We're on our Business Advisory Council meeting in October. We had a call to action for you that if you wanted to get involved in the parent community work group, you wanted to get involved in the work-based learning work group, or that you wanted just to be more engaged with your local school districts as a business and industry partner. This call to action is here for you. We'll put a link in the chat to that call to action, and I think I've got it right here. I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to give everybody just a chance to fill that out, if you've not filled that out. And I hope that those that did fill it out, I was able to connect with all of you. Many of you here last time did fill us out, so we did some good emailing and maybe setting a plan on how to continue the conversation around these work groups, or around the opportunity to do a work-based learning experience. Or some had said, hey, I want to try and help with mock interviews, or hey, I wanted to kind of develop a mentoring relationship with our organization with schools, which is very helpful as our graduation requirements are changing, and some of our students are going a path that need a mentor in their academic and future work-based career. Christine's put up on the slide there what that call to action is going to look like for you. You have multiple ways to engage with us, and also at the bottom of that call to action, share with us if there's particular pathways that you are interested in exploring, particular pathways that maybe you have direct experience that you want to bring to the conversation with your local school or with multiple schools. We want to be able to just make this as relevant and accessible for you as well. You know, I think in an earlier presentation it said that business and industry want to participate, but they're not being invited to participate. Well, we're inviting you today. So please, if you've not filled out that call to action, and you'll be hearing from me and seeing how we can continue the relationship.
Great. And I do want to just share too that everyone that shared out the call to action at our previous meeting, we've connected with all of you. We followed up with all of you. So we really do appreciate those of you that already filled that out and have committed to partnering with us in this work. So thank you for that. And thank you for those that may fill that out in the future. Really appreciate it. And then for the last piece, I just wanted to share that right now, there's a huge need for substitutes in school districts. Maybe you don't want to substitute in the school district, but there may be somebody that you know that might be interested in substituting. So that is a big need for our districts right now. And we're just sharing this out in all of our meetings just to say that this is an opportunity for people. If you know anyone that might be interested in helping with that. And finally, I really just want to thank you for joining us this morning. Great information, great conversation. Thanks for being actively engaged in the chat. Here's our contact information if you want to reach out to us. And I'll be sharing a follow-up email with all of the presentations, recording, and information from today's meeting. So thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great holiday break. Thank you so much.